from the worlds of the Genesis of Androzani Advent Calendar. The December Dump.
What does Varys envy most about Peter Baelish?
I don't know.
His little finger.
Lol.
Because Varys is a eunuch.
Oh yeah.
Hello and welcome to our next reaction and review of Game of Thrones. We are on Season 2, Episode 4, Garden of Bones. Patreon.com/Genesis of Androzani if you want to get access to the full-length reactions. We also have early access to videos like this, and we also have the Master Tier. We can request videos for us to do. Twitter.com/GAndrozani if you want to get in contact with us or join in all the banter. So, last time we had What is Dead May Never Die, and now we have Garden of Bones. What are you anticipating?
More. I actually don't know what's going to happen. My prediction will be that we'll see Tyrion Lannister in this episode. If I'm going to make one prediction, I think that one would be it. Because he's going to show up at some point. So yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's the only main character from Season 1 that's still alive that we haven't seen yet, right? I think.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Aside from, like, I mean, I don't know if it counts as main characters, but, like, we haven't seen Barristan or anything like that. But he doesn't really count. He's kind of secondary. When I say
we haven't seen the Mountain, I don't think.
Yeah, but then again, it's like...
We've seen the Hound.
Does the Mountain count as a main character? He's not.
They're not a main character, but they were
by the recap standards. I said Baratheon, Lannister, Stark, and Targaryen would count as main characters, and I think we've seen all of them except for Tywin and Kevin and Lancel. I think
so. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, we haven't seen Maester Aemon, but that's because we haven't been at the Wall. We haven't seen Rickon Stark, but that doesn't matter. Harrenhal!
Yeah.
Look how just destroyed it is.
It's so wooden.
Oh, what's this? What's this?
Oh, this is different.
That'd be Karth?
That's it.
So you got 2 new locations.
Oh boy. Well, we're definitely seeing Daenerys this episode.
And new writer as well, Vanessa Taylor.
Oh my god, they actually used the goddamn sound effect.
The Slovene sound effect.
Everything. That's honestly, that's pretty bad.
Hey.
King in the North. I can't believe they used fart effects. Oh, he's burnt.
Well, he got his justice.
Another victory for the King in the North. Take their boots.
Please!
Oh.
Please, don't...
No.
It's better than biting your own tongue, believe me.
Oh, that's horrible. That's one of my worst fears.
Oh, the sound.
Sawing your leg off.
That should help his foot grow back.
Okay.
The boy was lucky you were here.
He was unlucky that you were.
Okay. Rob, fighting bad.
You're here to answer for your brother's latest treason.
Uh-oh.
Whatever
Oh
my
shit.
traitor brother has...
Gosh, she's such a prisoner.
Oh.
My lady's
Oh. I've never seen someone want to hit someone with a sword instead of cutting. Oh boy.
What's the meaning of this?
Hey.
What kind of
knight beats a helpless girl.
The kind who serves his king, imp.
Careful now. We don't want to get blood all over your pretty white cloak.
Someone get the girl something to cover herself with. I'm not threatening the king, sir. I am educating my nephew. Braun, the next time Sir Merwin speaks, kill him. That was a threat. See the difference?
I've seen that clip before.
Yeah.
Oh, so fucking good.
Clogged from balls to brains.
You think dipping his wick will cure what ails him?
There's no cure for being a cunt. But
Oh.
Your Grace!
Oh no. I think I've seen this scene before. Or at least a clip of it.
Could you hit her?
Oh. How about with this chair?
Hard. He'd want me to get his money's worth.
You sick cunt.
50 Shades of Joffrey.
Fucking hell.
This scene is better written than that whole series.
Oh god, this is the part I've seen briefly. Oh. Fuck off. Fuck off. Oh my fucking god.
Of course, he has a
What are you
crossbow
doing?
in his bedroom.
Begin.
Only Joffrey would have this kind of fetish.
Yep.
Even just the sound is... Oh. That was hard to watch.
Oh. Hey.
I've never been so happy to see Littlefinger.
your tent, not our tent. The king snores, perhaps, or simply prefers solitude. Pleasures of command.
The place of a king's guard is by the king's side.
And on the night of your wedding, who was by the king's side then?
You seem quite interested in our marriage.
Your marriage is quite interesting.
Only that the desert around their walls is called the Garden of Bones. Every time the Carthians shut their gates on a traveler, the garden grows.
That's nice.
That's all that was needed.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, yes.
Well,
Hardenhal.
they're off to. Yep.
Castle burned by dragons.
That looks cool.
Dragonfire.
Yep.
There's dragons here. No, all the dragons are dead.
Of course he would say that. He's so fucking stupid. He's so gonna die at some point, and I can't wait.
What, hot pie?
Yeah, he's so gonna die.
He's too fat to live.
He's too fat. Is someone getting stretched?
You'll find out.
It sounds like someone's getting stretched.
He was my son.
Oh,
Oh.
that's horrible.
This is like a concentration camp.
It really is. I think I know what this is.
What did
It's like
Yoren
she's
say?
making a list.
What did Yoren say about... He would say that boy's name when he went to bed at night.
You may have heard false reports.
You betrayed
Oh
Ned.
no.
It seems to me that fate has given us this chance to...
You lost your mind. Get out!
Fucking hell. Not unwarranted, but fucking hell. Yes, because Kat was so clearly going to sleep with you after you betrayed Ned. I like how they used the scene before with Arya to then transition to this.
Yeah.
And it makes you think how much he probably bullshitted in season 1.
Yeah.
I think that's actually really clever how they structured this.
What's this?
Oh, just don't tell me what I think it is. Oh.
Your husband was an honorable man. should rest beside his family in the crypts beneath Winterfell.
He told me he stares at him every day. That's why he doesn't get picked.
Man, I wonder who's about to get picked.
You.
Ah, okay.
Change of tactic.
Oh my god.
Of course.
Oh. Oh, he's even worse than getting stretched.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Which of the villagers?
Oh.
Who?
Oh.
Who? I never saw.
Because the rat's gonna want to escape.
There's only one way out.
That is brutal. I've never seen anything like that before. Oh god. What is it with this episode being fucking brutal?
The Garden of Bones is an apt name.
God, a lot is happening in this episode.
Two stags.
Now I understand why you found religion in your old age.
Watch yourself, Renly.
No, I'm
You should kneel before your brother. He's the Lord's chosen.
Start to kneel when you're on a
Born
horse.
amidst salt.
Whole realm denies it from dawn to the wall. Old men deny it with their death rattle, and unborn children deny it in their mother's wombs.
We shall see, Renly. Come the dawn, we shall see.
Look to your sins, Lord Renly. The night is dark and full of terrors.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah, the dialogue is really fucking good this episode.
I loved him once.
Oh, just love the chemistry between the Baratheon brothers.
Oh yeah.
It's a shame we never got to see him with Robert and Stannis.
Yeah.
Ah, piss on that! Oh, that was a great shot.
Charged with the governance and protection of Karth.
My god, it's the
greatest
monk.
city that...
Guests are treated with respect, not insulted at the gates.
Then perhaps you should return to where you come from. We wish you well.
God, he's got such a shitty grin.
All of us will die.
Which we shall deeply regret. But Karth...
I invoke Sumai. I will vouch for her, her people, and her dragons, in accordance with the law.
Oh.
Damn.
Woo! Beauty. Oh, that's horrible.
Jesus. This episode is so brutal. Honestly, this is probably the most brutal episode we've had so far of the show.
I mean, episode 2 had the most sex, but this has the most violence.
Yeah. Oh no. Oh no.
In the village.
You can't do that.
Not from the village.
He's got king's
Where is the
blood.
Brotherhood?
I'm assuming I is gonna say that she might.
Have you ever
know,
seen rat's teeth?
maybe? Oh. Yep, knew it.
Look at this man. Chiseled out of stone.
What lucky timing.
After we interrogate him, we usually just...
Are we so well manned that we can afford to discard able young...
What are you looking at? Kneel!
Jesus.
Kneel. Or I'll carve your lungs out, boy.
You do no such thing. This one's a girl, you idiot.
Wow. Wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, Daddy Tywin.
Cersei must have great trust in you, allowing you into her chamber during the hour of the wolf.
She often works from dusk till dawn. She must be very glad to have you helping her from dusk till dawn.
Did Cersei have you knighted before or after she took you into her bed? What? No more warnings for me, sir?
You will withdraw these filthy accusations.
Have you ever given any thought to what King Joffrey will have to say when he finds out you've been bedding his mother?
He'll fucking kill him.
He told me to obey her in everything.
Did he tell you to fuck her too?
This is so good.
A high place in court, knighthood, my sister's legs spreading open for you at night. Oh, yes, it must have been terrible. Wait here. No one ever need know. As long as you keep faith with me.
God, what Tyrion's so fucking smart.
To know.
God, it's so satisfying to see Tyrion just fucking boss everything in King's Landing.
Man, this episode's filled to the brim.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird.
And we'll not speak of this again.
I am truly a Riz, and always will be. But surely there are other ways, cleaner ways.
Cleaner ways don't win wars.
Oh, he's almost like a sociopath.
Yeah.
He's so cold. He has no heart. Smuggle the red woman, eh?
Jesus. Oh, okay. We're doing this. Oh, God. Oh. No, this is what Stannis was thinking of when he wanted a son. What the fuck just happened?
Isn't that a cliffhanger?
I mean, yeah, it is, but I don't know what the fuck just happened.
Alright, Callum, your initial thoughts on Garden of Bones.
It was something. It was filled to the brim. Now, this is probably one of the most, like, plot-heavy episodes of the show so far.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this was filled to the brim with everything in every location in the show we've seen so far.
Except for Beyond the Wall.
Yeah, that's the only thing that wasn't explored this
And
episode.
also the Iron Islands as well. We didn't see any of that.
Mm-hmm. Even then, so much happened.
Yeah.
It was, and it was really good. I actually think this is probably my favourite episode of the season so far.
Yeah.
That ending was so fucking weird.
Yeah.
That is the most I guess, like, the most confused I've been so far.
Yeah. I remember when me and Jake did the season 8 review, right? We talked about when we did like a ranking of the seasons, and when we got to season 2, one of the things he mentioned was, what the fuck was that thing when the Red Woman gave birth to that thing?
I'm in the same boat as him. I'm assuming that will be explained what that actually is and what that means for the Stannis storyline.
It's like she gave birth to Venom or something.
It kind of did look like that.
Yeah.
For like a second. That is the weirdest birth scene I have ever seen in anything.
Yeah.
I was like, at first I was like thinking, like, wait, has it been 9 months already? It can't be. And then I'm like,
it's more like 9 days, honestly.
It's this scene of like mystic power bullshit pregnancy.
Yeah.
So we understand why now she wanted to be impregnated by Stannis. We just don't know what this is.
Yeah. You gotta beg the question of, does Stannis know exactly what that is and what that was meant to be?
I guarantee you he doesn't know what the fuck this is. He thinks he's having an actual son. And he's gonna get a right shot when he finds out that she's not pregnant anymore. I guess, and that explains why in this episode she had like quite big robes.
Yeah.
Because she was
Well, I mean,
big.
he obviously knew that she was going to give birth. That's why he told Davos to take her there, to smuggle her.
Right. Okay.
But does he know that it was gonna be like that black shade thing?
So then, why would he not have questions that it's gone really quick?
No, he
No,
must have
surely
known.
not.
He must have known that it was gonna happen.
Oh god, this is so fucking weird. I don't know what to think about it. Because there's so much to actually think about it in like what's actually going on. Yeah, so he's asked to smuggle her because fucking hell. That was so fucking weird.
The only logical step you can make is that she has told him about this before.
I guess.
And when she tempted him with the sun, it's probably happened before. He's probably refused her before.
Maybe.
But at this point, he's getting desperate.
Maybe that creature is going to turn into just a full adult. I don't know.
It's interesting, isn't it?
That was weird.
Yeah.
I'm definitely intrigued to see what the fuck it is.
Yeah.
For sure. It's still very fucking weird.
Yeah. Right, well, let's get into the other characters first so you can give that a bit of a digestion.
Yes, please.
Okay. Right, let's begin with Robb Stark.
Yeah, he had a very interesting... the only beginning was like his only scene of the
He had a couple of
episode,
scenes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, that conversation he had with the woman was really weird.
Talisa, the nurse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she comes from... Yeah. So let me put this in perspective. Talisa comes from Volantis, which is an Essos. It's,
okay. Yeah. Yeah,
so
she actually kind of had that vibe about her,
yeah.
so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, she obviously comes from a very different culture that's of peace.
Yes.
Which is why she's so objecting to war.
Yeah.
And the interesting part, and also the fact that she was talking back to a king. And you wouldn't get that from anyone in Westeros except for maybe Tyrion. But because she comes from Volantis, like, for example, Shay was talking back to Sansa last episode. So people from Essos tend to have a very different way of speaking, and they're a little bit more, like, free. And I think that's probably why Talisa was so willing to talk back to Robb.
Yeah. It's just that I felt it quite weird, like, what her, like, arguments were, I guess, for what is happening. It was very odd. I definitely didn't expect a kind of scene like that.
Well, I mean, she was kind of putting in perspective, like, Robb was trying to say, like, oh, we were doing it out of mercy. And then her perspective was, but you were the one that killed him. You were the one that commanded your men to kill them. You know? She's essentially trying to, I suppose you could say she's trying to say that she doesn't believe that war is right.
Yeah. To me, it came across to me like she was trying to make him feel bad because, killing is bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what she was saying.
That is what she was saying. And yeah, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. It's not like a massive issue to me. It was just like I expected those kind of conversations to happen, but not this soon. I guess that might be what I'm thinking. Yeah. It was very odd.
That scene was so brutal though when she had to saw off that guy's leg.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was. Yeah, that was. Yeah, it's very brutal. Yeah, and I'm like, this is the first time I think I've actually had an explanation of why people put like things in people's mouths when they have anything like cut off. It's not because they like are gonna scream or anything, but that could be a reason why some people do it as well. But it's so they don't bite their tongue.
Yeah.
That's actually, I've never actually thought about it that way, and now that I think about it, that I really feel really dumb for not thinking that.
Yeah, well there you go. Yeah, oh god, that's one of my biggest fears. Is having dismembered limbs. Oh god, that's horrible. God, this episode was brutal from start to finish.
Yeah, this is the most brutal episode we've had so far, because not only did people's limbs get cut off, but halls were abused like really badly, and then we had like
the tickler with the rat, and then you've also got like Melisandre giving birth to a shade.
Yeah, this was one of the most fucked up episodes we've had.
Yeah. And also, Zarazo and
Probably the
Doxos
most.
sliced his hand as well.
Yeah, just to give it a little bit more extra there.
Oh.
Yeah, this episode was fucking brutal.
Yeah, Sansa got, like, stripped down as well.
Oh my god, yeah, she did. Jesus Christ. And she got hit by a sword. Not cut or sliced, but hit by a sword. Yeah, this is definitely the most brutal episode we've had so far.
Yeah. Oh, Ned's bones as well.
That I actually got quite emotional during that scene because that was like,
yeah,
that was like,
yeah. Anyway,
the music in that.
Cycling back to the beginning. In this episode, not only were we introduced to Talisa, who was the nurse, but we also got introduced to Roose Bolton. Bolton is a house in the north. They are a house in a castle called the Dreadfort, and their banner is a flayed man. And he was having a conversation about Rob about how he wanted to take these men and flay them because that's what his house does. And Rob basically said, "No, we're not going to be doing that."
Yeah, I noticed they called him Bolton, and I think there's a character related to that I know of. I'm thinking, could be wrong, but
I guess you have to wait and
that's
see.
Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, Roose Bolton. Yeah, this is basically his introduction episode, and the first thing we learn about him is that his house likes to flay men, which is just, again, that adding to that theme of brutality. I think if we're talking about the theme of the episode, I think that's it. It's violence.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
Interestingly though, a man who represents a house of flayed men, very composed.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, like he was very gentlemanly. You know, he was like, "Our house wants to take these men to flay them, as it is what we've been doing for centuries." Robb Stark. You know, he's very like composed, and it's like, wow, this guy likes to skin people alive. Ugh, disgusting. But yeah, Robb Stark is continuing to butcher Lannister men.
Yeah, he's winning a lot of battles, which is, I think they've done a good job at establishing that that's quite a surprise to a lot of people. Yeah, and that also linked with like why Sansa was being beaten.
Yes, and even though you said you were a bit unsure about the scene, I do like how Talisa questioning his morals starts to like put some doubt in his mind. I did like that.
Yeah. It's not because like the reason he's doing it is because he feels like not only to save his family, but he feels like that the Lannisters should not be in power. And it is setting up this whole theme of, is it for the greater good? Like doing
and also the asking
that
the question of like, she said, do you think these Lannister men are friends with King Joffrey? Because they're obviously not. They're just following orders.
Yeah, I just think that it's just that there's a war to be won, and that people die in wars every day. So
yeah,
like it's not good, but it's just reality.
Sadly, it is, and it's brutal.
Yes,
I think this episode really showed the brutality of war firsthand.
Oh yeah, I definitely think so. For sure.
Disgusting. But despite the fact that she was completely questioning his morals, he seemed to like get a bit of a kick out of it. Like he was almost happy about it. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose maybe you can sort of do the math and figure out. Well, I mean, he's a young man, and any attention from a woman's gonna get a rise out of him.
Yeah, because I was like thinking to myself, I was like, if this is the start of a romance, this is a really odd way to start it.
Well, you noticed that when they first saw each other, they were a bit awkward.
Yeah, it definitely seemed that way. Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to King's Landing. we have
Yes.
Joffrey Baratheon.
God, I fucking hate him so fucking much. He's so fucked up in the head.
Yeah.
It's not him just being like an arsehole. He is actually fucked up in the head.
Yeah. So not only was he aiming a crossbow at Sansa, saying, "If we kill you, that'll send a message to your brother," and this is the woman he's meant to be marrying. But not only that, we also have the scene where he tortures Daisy and Roz.
That was one of the most uncomfortable moments, I think, of the show so far.
Ugh.
Yeah, and rightfully they don't show the Hawk getting literally hit by a massive blunt object.
Being the fucked up little child he is, rather than the way he gets pleasure to seeing other people hurt each other. Because of course,
he's him not being. He's like an opposite of a cuck.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't like watching people like interact in that way. He likes seeing people in pain. It's really fucked up. So yes, I am kink shaming him.
Yes.
Because it's fucked up.
Yeah, I think this is a step too far.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and the reason why it's a step too far is because it's not with consent.
Yeah, he's just doing it because I'm the king.
Yeah, and
he's
the most irritating thing about him is that he's holding a crossbow for this whole episode.
Yeah, he actually is. Yeah, that's actually quite a nice detail.
And I like that detail of how that kind of links to what Yoren was saying before he died, about like, about how shit crossbows are.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was another link to Yoren in this episode as well, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But yeah, God, Joffrey is the devil incarnate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking hell.
I like that whole exchange between like the Hound, Meryn Trant, and Bronn. Like Meryn Trant is doing his king's duty because he's part of the king's guard, and then Bronn is like, "Yeah, but come on, mate, I'm fucking stab your eye out." And I like the fact that despite the fact that Meryn is following King's orders, he realizes that if he fights back, that Bronn will kill him.
Yeah.
Because despite the fact that you would think it's on paper, talking about like mathematicians, as Littlefinger put it, you would think that the King's Guard would be the best swords, right? But no, it's definitely the sellsword that's going to win that fight, not the King's Guard. And Meryn Trant knows this because he would have heard that Bronn killed one of Lysa Arryn's King's Guard, or Queen's Guard in that case. So that's a good bit of linking in the story.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and I like the detail that the Hound helped out Sansa as well, and he knew he'd be safe to do so once Tyrion ordered him to.
Yeah.
Which let's not waste any more time. Tyrion Lannister, man, what a character! In the last 2 episodes, he has skyrocketed to being one of the most clever, manipulative, brilliant characters in this show. That scene with Lancel Lannister was incredible.
Yeah, that was really, really good. I fucking thought that was great. The whole scene was just... It was so satisfying to watch, really.
Yeah. I just love it how he's like, oh, my father commanded you to have Cersei spread her legs for you. How terrible. But I like how he did that so he could get Lancel in his corner. Like, he did it so that Lancel would tell him what Cersei's up to. Brilliant.
Yeah.
That is how you win someone over. It's by forcing them to, keep their secrets. And this is why someone like Varys is not vulnerable, because he doesn't have to keep secrets like that. He has no vulnerability in like who he sleeps with, because he doesn't have a cock. Whereas that's why, Pycelle got exposed because he's vulnerable because he whores.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I fucking love that detail, and I love how Tyrion knows this. And you got to think to yourself, well, this pretty much confirms if Tyrion knows that Lancel is sleeping with her, then that means he must know that Jaime was sleeping with her as well.
Yep.
Which means that
Tyrion,
which means that Tyrion knows that Joffrey is a bastard.
Yeah, he knows. 100%.
Yep. Brilliant subtext.
Mm-hmm.
I love Peter Dinklage, man. He's so good.
He's so good.
Yeah. Like him and Tyrion and Tywin are just so, their presence on screen is felt always.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure, 100%.
Yeah. I think I've said that. I may have said this before, but on the video I did with Jake. But like the Lannisters are always my favorite characters. They are.
It's no
so
surprise.
Good.
It's no surprise.
Yeah, except for Kevin, because who cares about Kevin Lannister? But yeah, Sansa Stark was bullied and embarrassed and almost murdered by her betrothed husband. And then I like that detail of when Tyrion says, you know, do you want to call off the marriage? And she says, I am loyal to my King Joffrey, I'm loyal to my love. And then of course Tyrion says, Lady Stark, you may live us out yet.
Yeah, that was a good line.
Brilliant. I think there was a brief appearance from Dontas Hollard as well, but I can't remember what he did. But yeah, that whole section in King's Landing was brutal, and it was brilliant.
It was. It really, really was.
Yeah. Just like Tyrion in King's Landing is the peak of life. And like now Ros has really come to realize like what she's gotten herself into, and also now that Baelish isn't there to protect her, she's exposed.
Oh yeah, 100% she is.
Ah, poor Daisy.
Yeah.
Like you could see the black bruise marks.
Oh yeah.
Right, let's move on to another brilliant character, Peter Baelish, aka Littlefinger.
Oh, he was really, really good. Oh, God, that scene between him and Kat was...
What an absolute bullshitter.
I know.
And like you noted,
yeah.
it was brilliant storytelling how they showed Arya not in safety before he said that she was in safety in King's Landing.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like how I like how one of the things he said to her, because she said, I heard that you betrayed him. And I like how one of the things he said to her was actually true when he said, I tried to get him to stop. And he actually did. If you remember, before Ned went to the Red Keep, Littlefinger actually went to his chamber and tried to convince him otherwise. So he was actually telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that detail, and just Kat's pure rage at him. And then, of course, Littlefinger managing to bribe her over, saying that, you know... And again, speaking truthfully, Tyrion Lannister was the one who said, bring the bones to Ned out of goodwill. And it makes sense why he would, because, you know, Ned Stark's bones are not going to benefit the Lannisters at all, or anyone in King's Landing at all. But he knows that Catelyn... would, you know, would value those bones.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense why Tyrion would give those bones to her, and also it would broker some sort of peace that they might get Jaime back.
Yeah, because that's what Tyrion is trying to do.
Yeah, but I think once the box got brought in and like you heard the Stark theme play, I think you knew exactly what it was.
Yeah, it's like I feel like as soon as I saw the box, I was just like, oh no. That was probably like, I feel like that was probably like one of my favorite scenes in terms of acting.
Yeah,
because like the actress was just brilliant because it was so realistic in how she reacted to it.
Yeah, and I think you can say, like, because obviously, like, they heard the news that he was dead, but sometimes when you don't see someone dead, you don't believe it. You know, you're sort of in doubt that it might not be true. And when you actually see, like, someone's corpse or their bones, you, like, fully come to terms with it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, just her seeing her husband's bones is very sad. But, like, again, like, Littlefinger, you can tell he's still trying to win her over.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's very clear what he's trying to do.
Yeah. So, you gotta wonder to yourself, what's Littlefinger gonna do now that he's brought those bones to her?
Yeah.
Also, another great scene leading up to that was Littlefinger's scene with Marjorie Tyrell.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I really liked it. I really like how Littlefinger was asking her questions about Renly and how he is like, why is, your brother going into his chambers?
Mm-hmm.
Or in his tent, sorry. His tent. And I like the way she responded to him, basically. Essentially, I like the fact that he was trying to threaten her with knowing information about her brother, and Renly. And I like how she turned that back on him.
Mm.
And what that does is it starts to establish that Marjorie is one of those characters that are like Littlefinger, Varys, Pycelle, Cersei, Tyrion. A very smart character that knows how to manipulate their way around. So that does a lot of good for her, I feel, having her be able to, handle Littlefinger. And you can tell, like, as soon as she saw him, she knew exactly who he was and what his reputation was.
Mm-hmm.
And I also just think that actress is brilliant. Natalie Dormer.
She's really good.
Brienne of Tarth had a very brief appearance, only in the scene where Littlefinger went to see Renly Baratheon. So essentially, she's just staying as his Kingsguard. But I liked that scene. I like how now that Renly's not on the small council, he can be honest, and he's a lot more, like, arrogant.
Yeah, it definitely comes across that way for sure.
But not just the scene with Littlefinger. I think the scene where Renly really stole the show was the scene with Stannis Baratheon.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, that scene was great. I thought every character in that whole scene, like Renly, the Red Woman, Stannis, and Catelyn, were all brilliant. All of their motives made sense. They were all logical, and they all bounced off each other really well. And their conflict it made a lot of sense. I really liked it, and I liked how, all three Baratheon brothers have a sense of humor, but it's all a different kind of humor.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think that's actually a really
nice
like, way they've
with
done
Robert,
that.
it's like he's a fat drunk. He's like, "Thank the Lord for Bessie and her tits," like that sort of thing. Whereas with Renly Baratheon, it's like, "Oh, well, you got a personality of a lobster, and no one wants you to be king. You're just boring." I like that. I like how he's just mocking Stannis for being like very uncharismatic and unloved. And I love how just Renly is like, well, I've got all the armies. And then I like how Stannis' sense of humor is like as dry as a desert. Like I think it's actually at the point where he doesn't even intend to be funny. He just is. Because I think the thing that makes Stannis funny in that scene is that he is being so dead serious, but the things that he is saying sound ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because he's like, the throne is mine, and I will win it with the Lord of Light. And then like just Renly like laughing on like him being a stupidly religious man.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
It is.
But I again like Renly insulting Stannis for being old as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just love that. I love that. It's that whole clash of like dedicated religion and like dedicated honor, and just like some guy who pisses on it, like he just doesn't give a rat's ass about religion. He's like, I have the biggest army in the world, you should be bowing down to me. and all the people love me, and they all want to vote for me if it was a democracy, and I'm just so young and dead gorgeous and so much better than you crusty old fucker. But then, of course, we find out that Stannis really does mean business.
Oh yeah.
Like, Renly is playing at politics, but Stannis is fucking serious. He's like, no, if you don't join allegiances with me, I will have your head on a spike.
Yeah, definitely seems that way for sure.
Yeah.
The way he conducts himself.
God, all the actors were so good.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move to the east for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Kavaro comes back with his horse to tell Daenerys that the one place they can go is Karth, possibly. And of course, they go to Karth, which is in the very southeast of Essos. Like, they're very far away now. They've travelled a very long way from where they were. Because the Pentos is on the west coast of Essos, which is just across the Narrow Sea from Westeros. Having travelled all the way to the Dothraki Sea to Vaes Dothrak, which is in the sort of centre of that wide country. And now they've travelled southeast to Karth, where they've gone all the way to the other side of the world. So they're very far away from where they were. And I just love the fact that on the other side of the planet, there's just this massive, beautiful city of rich people that no one knows about. Like, they're just like this hidden pocket. It's almost like and the vibe I get from Karth, it's almost like Dubai or Las Vegas. Like, it's this city built on a shithole in nowhere, but it's like this massive, rich city, you know?
Oh yeah, it definitely feels that way. Yeah.
Of course, Daenerys arriving at the gates of Karth, she has to try and, get her way through the 13. Obviously the main one being the Spice King. I recognise that actor, actually, and I can't remember what his name is. But yeah, what did you think of Daenerys and the Spice King's scene?
I thought that was very interesting. It was a very different kind of scene from... So, yeah, it was... Because it felt like that Daenerys was already acting quite differently than she has before. Yeah, that was a very interesting scene. I actually did quite like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked how the Spice King, like... I just love how these cities in Essos, like, they're just so separate from the rest of the world, and they just like, no, we don't have to let you in, actually. Why would we risk, the harm of our people? That Karth didn't become the greatest city in the world by letting in Dothraki savages.
Yeah. That scene was very, it was like one of those, well-spoken scenes of the show.
Nicholas Blaine is the actor. Oh, he appeared in Order of the Phoenix, apparently. Oh, he plays one of the, he's in the department of, not the fucking, the Ministry of Magic. He's one of the characters in that. He's like a side character. Like, the scene with all the, the paper planes, the memos? He's in the elevator during that scene. He's just a minor role.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay.
Anyway. But yeah, I thought Spice King was, he was very camp, but, not over the top.
Yeah, he definitely felt very camp-like.
Yeah.
It definitely was that kind of vibe.
I like how he said, oh, my name is far too long. Just call me a trader of spices. Of course, all the 13 refused her until Xaro Zoendoxos stepped in and invoked... I can't remember what he called it. But basically it was, I invoke this thing, and then he cut his finger with a blade. And essentially it's like, well, you'd imagine that means that you invoke something special to... And he said that it means that he is responsible for them. So, if Daenerys, her dragons, her men, or a Dothraki, cause any trouble, then it's his fault, and you'd imagine that his punishment would be death, or something like that. Or something like that. I don't know for sure. We don't know for sure yet. But Xaro Zoendoxos invoked whatever that was to let her in. So you got to imagine that Xaro Zoendoxos, you got to imagine he believes the rumors to be true about her dragons, and you got to imagine he also wants something out of her, because why would you let them in this city otherwise? If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Mm.
Interesting how that will go going forward.
Yes, and you noticed the monk from Tooth and Claw.
Yes, I did.
Yes. That character's name is Pyat Pri, and he is a warlock. And there was a few others too, like there was the Silk King, the Copper King, and I didn't write down any of the names of the others. But yeah, very interesting, very interesting. And I like how Jorah Mormont knew about Karth, and he said I like that line about, obviously named the episode named after it. Outside of Karth they call it the Garden of Bones, and it's known that when travelers visit there, the bone pile rises. That was cool.
Yeah.
To basically establish that they could die if they go there.
Very interesting thing.
Yes, and I also think it was smart for Daenerys to not show them the dragons, because that's all she has. If she loses the dragons, then they're fucked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's doing everything she can to make sure that no situation will cause her to lose them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, so you'll have to wait and see what happens now that they're in Karth.
Yeah, that would be interesting. See what that leads to.
Yes. Now, in this episode, we were introduced to a new castle called Harrenhal.
Yes.
It's a castle, I believe it's in the Crown Lands, so it's relatively near King's Landing. It's sort of in the northern end, though. It's a bit more near the neck. And it was a castle that was burned down by dragonfire, so that's why it looks so shit. And it hasn't been rebuilt.
Yeah.
And as we saw, it's essentially became like a concentration camp of sorts. A prison.
It pretty much was.
Yeah, and they said that the prisons were overfilling, and that's why they were sleeping outside in the rain with no shelter. Which is torture. That's horrible.
Yeah. Oh, God, that was just, again, like most of this episode, very just brutal stuff.
God, you could get proper diseases from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course we were introduced to the Tickler, who was torturing them for information about the Brotherhood without banners. So in season 1, when Ned sent Beric Dondarrion to sort out the mountain, he mentioned the Brotherhood without banners.
Right.
So the Tickler was trying to get information out of them about the Brotherhood, like where are they? And by doing so, he was strapping them to a chair, putting a rat in a bucket and setting it on fire, so that the rat would dig out their chest.
Oh God,
that's horrible.
It is. That is just really fucked up.
Yeah,
and disgusting.
God, this episode was brutal.
It really was.
Yeah. Of course, they nearly killed Gendry until Big Dick Daddy Tywin Lannister came in on his horse with his very, very expensive armor and cloak, looking like a real Chad.
Yeah.
And yeah, he came in and basically stopped them and just was like, why aren't they being put to use? And asked Arya that question. I can't remember what he asked her, but he essentially figured out that she was smart. And he's like, unlike you, Polliver. And then Polliver embarrassed the fact that fucking Tywin Lannister just sassed him, called him an idiot. So now Gendry is going to be a blacksmith, and Arya's going to be his cupbearer.
Yeah.
And you have to ask yourself the question: does Tywin recognize that she was a girl, but does he know who she is?
I have a feeling that he knows, but he's keeping it to himself for now. That might be my thought process.
Yeah, it's not exactly clear, is it?
No.
But yeah, great to see him Tywin again after all this time. I just think that whole shot of him riding in on that horse is quite iconic. Like, the way it was shot, it looked like art. Just him coming in with shadows down his face and just riding in. I think I saw like a fan painting of that shot of him coming in on the horse. It was very good. The direction at Harrenhal was outstanding. I'd say the direction of this episode overall was outstanding.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think it was brilliant throughout.
Yeah, but especially at Harrenhal, I like how Tywin's red cloak contrasted the dark colours of Harrenhal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we gotta wait and see what happens now that Arya is gonna be Tywin's cupbearer. And will the tickler still be caving out people with rats? God. Oh, and also Hot Pie pissed his pants.
Yeah, he did. Becoming more and more pathetic as time goes on.
I like that detail how he said, "Oh, that guy's been looking at the tickler every day, and he hasn't been chosen, so maybe I'll do so." And then he got chosen.
Yep. Yeah, so if he practically,
Yes.
in that situation, he was only going to choose those two.
Yeah.
And he luckily picked not him.
And of course, not only that, but you would imagine it would make sense to piss yourself at the sight of the mountain.
Yeah. I bet like if he wasn't staring at him, he wouldn't have chosen either of them. But because there was two staring at him,
Yeah.
he thought to decide
Yeah,
between those two.
and I find it interesting how this storyline stems off something that happened off screen in season 1, where the mountain went to the Riverlands, and like the Brothers Without Banners were there, and the man Beric that Ned sent there as well, he hasn't been seen. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now let's get back to Dragonstone. After that confrontation with Renly, we get that scene where the almost cold sociopath, you could say, Stannis Baratheon, commands his hand, Davos Seaworth, to smuggle the Red Woman into a cave so that she can give birth to a shade.
Yeah, that was interesting to say the least. And I'm just thinking, what the hell is his plan from this?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Because I feel like, because this is such a unique thing in comparison to the rest of the show so far, this has to be something that is involved with the war. Yeah, at least that's what my thinking is. Because why?
Yeah, this episode asked a lot of questions, didn't it?
Yep, and it has a lot to answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something,
Yeah.
and it's certainly going to be interesting to learn about.
Yeah, but regardless of like what worries you may have for what this could be, because obviously you've got a lot of questions. You're like, how the hell is this going to get answered? Would you say that on an execution level this was brilliant? Because I would say so.
I think it was really good.
Yeah,
It
I
definitely
would say, like, in
gets you
terms of
intrigued.
like taking the script to screen, I thought the actors and the production team did a brilliant job.
Yeah, I'd say so.
But this is definitely the weirdest episode we've had so far.
Just a bit.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's part of what makes it great for me. All right, shall we move on to the historical and reception?
Yes.
Okay. Garden of Bones received critical acclaim from most commentators. Rotten Tomatoes consensus: Garden of Bones continues Game of Thrones' stellar second season with a bleak, disturbing, and powerful episode that culminates in a bizarre confirmation that the night is indeed dark and full of terrors. IGN said a ferocious treat overloaded with misery, torture, and total WTF black magic-fueled ending. Matt Rickenthal considered it best of the season, but was worried about the ending and how magic would be dealt with in the show. There was consensus considering the episode most violent and gruesome to date. Sarah Hughes summed it up: this was an exceptionally violent episode. It featured one death by direwolf. Oh, there was that as well! I forgot about that.
In the cold open, really.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. 1 graphic foot amputation, 2 separate uses of a crossbow with a weapon of intimidation, continued humiliation of Sansa, stripped and beaten on Joffrey's orders, the brutal whipping of a whore, 2 torture scenes which were interrupted, a couple of backhanders, several dead bodies, and 1 slightly Camp Carthene blood oath. And of course, giving birth to a shade. Oh. Many commentators praised the acting in this episode, highlighting Michelle Fairley in the scene where Catelyn receives her late husband's bones and Peter Dinklage with Tyrion confronts his cousin Lancel.
I agree.
On Talisa's introduction, Miles McNutt wrote, the problem is that I'm pretty sure any viewer who watched this would know immediately that she is intended as Rob's love interest, and there is a simplicity to that which I object to. Interesting. We'll get more into that in the trivia. This episode won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Art Direction for a single camera series. I mean, the art direction was great. I mean, the scene with all the flags was fantastic. But, like, overall, like, I mentioned the scenes in Harrenhal, they look like art.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
This episode was written by Vanessa Taylor, who has been a co-executive producer, but this is her first episode of writing. So how did we feel about her writing style? You said her dialogue was very strong.
Yeah, I thought I think the dialogue in everything apart from probably the Rob scene was very good. I think the dialogue in there was a bit iffy for me, but I think everything else was stellar.
I would say probably the weakest scene of dialogue for me was the very first scene with the Lannister men, with the fart scene.
Oh yeah, that was also very odd as well.
Yeah.
That was really weird.
Yeah. This episode was
they used a generic sound effect as well, which really put me off.
Yeah. It doesn't. Yeah, I think with Game of Thrones that sound effect doesn't work so well because it's like with Aliens of London it feels a bit more fitting, whereas with this it's like
it just feels like quite jarring when this show is so like, especially this season where it feels so highly produced, to then have a sound effect like that is probably on public domain.
Yeah, it's very weird, isn't it?
It's nitpicking. Because that is very a nitpick thing to think.
Oh yeah, I think this episode, I think overall, is very similar to the Pointy End, in that for the most part, it's absolutely brilliant. But then there's a couple of small little weird moments that are like, I don't know about that. Like the fart scene was a bit like the Hodor scene, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then
I think the first 4 minutes of this episode were very odd, but then the rest of it was brilliant.
Yeah, but then after the whole Rob section of the episode, it just skyrocketed to brilliance.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, but yeah, you know, not much you can do about that.
Honestly, if that first, if that was that sort of beginning was a bit smoother and a bit better in dialogue and just, I guess, production, for the nitpick part, this probably could have been my favourite episode of the show so far, or probably second. Because I thought everything else was brilliant.
Yeah, it was amazing. I probably wouldn't go that far though, because I think You Win or You Die was a very special episode, and I think also
higher for sure.
I think maybe it would have probably been more on the tier of a Golden Crown.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you mean. So rather than being in a Golden Crown, it's more like a Pointy End.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everything matters, really.
Yeah, but apart from a couple of weird moments at the start, I thought the rest of the writing, especially the dialogue with, Stannis and Renly's dialogue was, amazing.
I agree.
Yeah, and Tyrion Lannister, holy shit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and as I said, the direction as well, which was done by David Prochaska, who is a new director. The directing was very art focused, and I think that makes sense because David Prochaska was a DOP for some other episodes, a director of photography, and like an art director. So it makes sense why this episode would focus a lot on its art value, because it was gorgeous. The colors were really smooth. I felt
they really were. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And overall, I thought the direction was amazing. And I think it makes sense why you would have an art director for the episode that has Melisandre giving birth.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I thought the CGI was quite strong.
I did. I thought the CGI was actually quite good.
Yeah. Even though it did look a bit like Venom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved the top view shots of Harrenhal with Arya sleeping, with like the rain falling down.
Yeah, I thought that was really
great.
Nice.
And also linking back to Yoren, I like the fact that she was doing what he was saying, because in the previous episode he said like every night he would say the name of that boy who killed his brother.
Yeah.
And I like the detail, like she was saying Joffrey, Cersei, Ilan Payne, the Hound, because they were all there when they were all responsible for Ned's death. And then after she saw the torturing, she said Joffrey, Cersei, Ilan Payne, the Hound, the Tickler, Polliver, I think she said. I can't remember. I know she said Polliver. Oh, no, she said the Mountain and Polliver. Yeah. Yeah, so it's like all the people she wants to kill.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, I thought the direction was amazing.
I agree. I thought
Yeah.
it was really good.
And it really got across the brutality as well. I like how he used the way of having it off screen to make it more gruesome, and you can just hear it. Like you can hear a lot of the gruesome parts, like with the sawing of the leg and the whipping. Yeah. Ugh. Gross. And also the establishing shot of Karth with like the sun and them standing opposite each other. That was also great, I feel. Music by Raymond Javadi.
Yeah, music again was really good, especially for the scene of Cat getting.
Yeah, they brought back the Stark theme, and they also had the Lord of Light theme for the scenes with Melisandre as well. But we do have a couple of new themes to listen to. The first one is called Karth. I was in a trance for a bit there.
That's really good.
Yeah, I was like in a trance from there. I was like, whoa, I was just thinking of Karth, but I wasn't like awake.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, so I suppose that does it then. That establishes that it has the right atmosphere. I like how it sounds like the other Essos themes we've had before, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah, definitely. It gets across that it's like the location vibe.
Because rather than being like a tribal theme with like a beat, it's like it's a bit more like luxurious.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like it comes from a place of wealth. The next one we're going to be listening to is called The Reigns of Castamere, which is the theme of House Lannister. And the version that we're going to be listening to is the one from the Season 2 album, so make sure you get that one, because there's a lot of different versions.
Who are you? The proud lord said that I must bow so low. Only a cat of a different coat, and a coat of gold or a coat of red. A lion still has claws, and mine are long and sharp, my lord. And so he spoke, and so he spoke, that Lord of Castamere. But now the rains we pour is hard, and not a soul to hear. And so we spoke, soul to hear.
So not only is that the theme of House Lannister, but it's also a song in universe that is sung about that family.
Right.
So obviously, if you're paying attention to the lyrics, it's they're talking about cat of a different coat, a lion still has claws. Very much about the family of Lannister.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a song that comes, pretty 100% sure the lyrics of that song comes from the books. So Raymond Javadi has provided the instrumental to go along with it, and it's this beautiful melody of do 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 do, and it's one that's recognizable throughout the show as the theme of House Lannister.
It is.
Yeah, I really like that theme a lot.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah, and we're gonna end up listening to a few more versions of that throughout the show. Right, what time is it now for?
It's time for the trivia, my lord.
Who was that meant to be?
I don't know.
I thought you were gonna do the Spice King for a second. The title of the episode appears in dialogue. When I'm asked about Karth, Jorah tells Daenerys that the desert around their walls is called the Garden of Bones. Every time the Karthines shut their gates on a traveller, the garden grows. So I think that's why Daenerys knew she had to get her way, otherwise they would have died.
Yeah. If that would have been the end for them.
Yeah.
And at least in her mind.
Yeah, and well, not just in her mind, but advised by Jorah. She knew that she could trust Jorah's word. Now, here we go. Here is the bit of trivia that's going to be the most important about this episode. Una Chaplin, the actress, was announced as playing a character called Jane Westerling. But her character introduces herself as Talisa. So this is the nurse. Mm-hmm. The reason why is because in the novel, A Clash of Kings, the character Jane Westerling is from the Riverlands, and she is introduced at about this point in the books. And she is introduced in the storyline with Robb. But the show has decided to change it. So this is... I mean, there are parts before that we have talked about where the show has been slightly different from the books. But this marks the point, the first point that you can put where the show is starting to change the source material. Or at least deviate from it slightly. Because they've changed it now that rather than it being a character called Jane Westerling from the Riverlands, it is a character named Talisa from Volantis. So, and I can't exactly delve deep into why yet, but the showrunners made this decision. And George R. R. Martin himself, because he was still working on the show at this point, has said in interviews that obviously, he's going to... I would imagine he wouldn't speak candidly if he really wanted to speak candidly. He's probably going to be a bit more kind than, about changing the source material. But we don't know that for sure. We don't know how he feels about it for sure. But what he has said about it is that in discussions with Dave and Dan, the showrunners, about this character, it was made very clear that the change of character was to benefit the format of a TV show, and that the storyline that George R. R. Martin wrote for Jane Westerling wouldn't have worked as well for a TV show, as what the showrunners believed.
Right.
So, for whatever, I can't exactly say what happens, because obviously I don't want to spoil you for anything, but they've decided to change it to a foreign girl from Volantis instead, and they've given her a different sort of character to Jane Westerling. So, I think that might explain why the dialogue feels a little bit different to everything else. It's because it's not something that's adapted. This is something that's been rewritten into the show. And there's a few reasons for that. One is, in the novels, Robb Stark is not a point of view character. He doesn't actually get a lot to do. The amount that he gets to do in the novels is like... It's similar to how we got in Season 1, except probably maybe even a little bit less. But Robb became a very popular character because of Season 1. And so what happened was the showrunners decided to give him more screen time than he got before. So in doing so, they've decided, well, if we're going to focus more on Robb's character, we need to have the characters around him be more developed, because then you don't want to have them be underdeveloped. Because in A Clash of Kings, Robb Stark and Jane Westerling don't get that much to do, because they're not point of view characters. The point of view characters around him are characters like I can't exactly remember whose it is, but it's not Robb Stark. He's not a point of view character. So the showrunners decided that to make for the fact that they've made Robb a point of view character in the TV show, they have to make the character of whoever this nurse is more nuanced and more like developed as a character. So in doing so, what they've had to do is they've had to reinvent the character, so that rather than being Jane Westerling, who's quite a minor role in the books, they've had to create this character Talisa. And the reason why they changed her from being from the Riverlands to Volantis is so they could have that whole clash of morals around war. Mm-hmm. So in just the fact of wanting Robb to have more screen time and wanting for there to be a reason for them to have a conflict of conversation, they've had to completely change this character. It's interesting how changing one small detail about a story can completely change what you have to do to have it make sense. And I think, whilst obviously we noted that some of the dialogue was interestingly a bit weird, I have a great respect for the fact that they've gone to these lengths to keep the story within logic. For them to want Robb to have more screen time, they've had to change quite a lot around him. And I have a great respect for that as showrunners. So even though the dialogue isn't adapted and it may not feel as authentic as everything else, I do respect the fact that they have made this decision to give Talisa a character beyond what Jane Westerling was in the book, so that things would make sense and they would develop properly, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think that whilst, we may criticize some of the writing, the logical step that the showrunners have made to give her a character makes sense, I feel. So I credit them for trying. You know, if that makes sense.
I think knowing that now, I think like it shows that the writers are better at doing adaptations than writing pure made-up scenes.
Yes.
Which, as we know, that was probably the show's downfall.
Yes.
So,
yeah,
I think if anything, that's sort of like a indicator as like, because I felt quite off about it. That's like, yeah, when we get to the stuff that's past all of the books, that's when I'm probably the most worried.
Yeah.
About how I'm going to feel about stuff.
Yeah,
that's
but,
my sort of takeaway from it.
But at the same time, I don't blame them for trying.
No. If that's what they were going for, then yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's very evident that the entire Rob section of this episode was brand new written. It's not from the books. But having said that, we have seen Dan and Dave do better. Because in season 1, they created some really brilliant scenes on their own, like the Robert scene with Cersei. That was one of the best scenes of season 1. So unfortunately, I think maybe they just haven't struck the same magic that they did before.
Yeah.
And actually, to be fair to them, their name is not credited on this episode for its writing.
That is actually true.
So it may be the fact of Vanessa Taylor having to write original material.
Yeah. Plus, but it also could be like they wanted a certain amount of like beats to that scene. They wanted things to line up this way.
Yeah.
So they are obviously involved with it. It's probably not them writing it, but it's just
Yeah, but apart from a little bit of wonky execution in terms of its weird writing, I thought the actors did great, and I thought the direction was great.
Yeah, I thought the acting was fine.
And the one big positive to that scene is not only did it show the brutality of war, but it also introduced Roose Bolton in a logical way. It made sense why Roose Bolton would be introduced in the scene with lots of dead people in it, like talking about flayed men. Yeah. But that just gives you a bit of backstory on why Talisa is so different from Jane Westerling.
Okay.
Though it is a little bit it is a little bit odd that they advertised her as Jane Westerling. I think that may be a bit scummy.
Yeah, that is a bit odd.
But yeah. Jon Snow and the Night's Watch, Jaime Lannister and the Greyjoys, as well as Bran Stark and the other characters of Winterfell do not appear in this episode. The plot mostly centers around the continuing campaign and the war between the Starks and Lannisters in the Riverlands, and the political machinations involving House Baratheon at Renly's camp. So it's very much focused around developing the War of the Five Kings and also giving Daenerys some screen time as well. But man, it was filled to the brim, wasn't it?
It really was.
Tywin stated in his last scene in the Season 1 finale Fire and Blood that he intended to regroup his army at Harrenhal, and now he has finally arrived. So I like the fact that they used that space of time to establish how long it takes to travel.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that Jaime has grown facial hair in the time that it took Tywin to travel there.
Yeah. I agreed.
This is the first episode since Winter is Coming where Vyas Dothrak is not shown in the title sequence. Because, of course, in the first episode we have Pentos and now we have Karth.
Yes.
TV First fans who didn't expect to see or quite understand what the shadow monster that Melisandre gave birth to was met up quite an uproar at the end of the episode on Twitter when this episode first aired, with various disparaging comments about its horrifying birthing process. Actress Carice Van Houten sarcastically responded on her Twitter account to all those saying, "Thanks for all your lovely comments on the baby." God. That's cool. Yeah, so it's interesting how this is quite an exciting episode, but it got quite a bit of backlash. But interestingly, backlash from those who hadn't read the books.
Yeah, of course, because they don't know.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my god, what is this?
When Joffrey orders Ros to beat Daisy with his cane, the scene cuts away quickly, Apparently, a few viewers thought that implied that Joffrey made Roz rape Daisy with the cane. Actress Esme Blanco denied this and said the whole scene just consisted of her repeatedly hitting Daisy with the cane until it was very bloody. Heavy camera editing to limit the on-screen violence maybe it confused some viewers. Bianco revealed that she was actually hitting a pillow off screen, so it was generally looked like she was hitting with all her force. A problem encountered was that Bianco was hitting the cane against the pillow so hard that the antlers of the stag head at the top of the cane kept snapping off, so the crew members had to keep gluing the antlers back together. I like the irony that Joffrey is ordering them to hit her with a stag cane, but he's actually not a stag, he's a lion. There's a lot of stags in this episode, actually.
Yeah.
In fact, this entire episode revolved a lot around Baratheons.
It did. It really did, actually.
Because Gendry was in it as well. Now, I have something to comment on. So, just curious, what did you think about Daenerys' dialogue and her delivery?
It was different. I definitely noticed that it was different from everything that's come before.
Different in what way?
I guess... I think not only in the way she was like pronouncing her words, but just like her delivery was quite different. And I'm trying to think that is it like because she was like really trying to make sure they got into the city, like thinking of like a story reason why. It definitely was different. I definitely noticed that it was like different from everything she's done before in terms of her delivery.
Yeah. Now, there's another bit about the books you should know. About Daenerys. So,
right, yeah.
Quite often, Emilia Clarke gets criticised for being a melodramatic actress, and whilst there is somewhat some truth to that, technically speaking, I think one of the reasons why she performs this way is because of the way she's directed. And the reason why she's directed way is because this is an adaptation. And the reason why she's directed that way due to the adaptation is because in the novel series, Daenerys is 13 years old. And that's why some of her dialogue sounds quite childish, is because in the novels she actually is one. And the reason why they chose not to make her 13 in the TV series is because she's raped.
Right, yeah.
So there is an issue in terms of adaptation of, because it's a TV show, they don't want to show a 13-year-old being raped. So they decided to make Daenerys older. And also the fact that if you have an adult actress, then she can portray the role better than a child can. But I think one of the reasons why it feels a bit odd that she seems so melodramatic is because you're watching an adult actress say lines written for a child. So I think that's probably why sometimes Emilia Clarke can come across as a bit melodramatic, is because she's being directed to act like a child, because that's how it's written in the novels. It's a bit of an awkward clash, and I'm not really sure how you would fix it, to be honest. Because you would either have to cast Daenerys as a child, which would be horrible, because you'd have to show a 13-year-old being raped on television. And you would also have a lesser actress, because you'd have to cast a 13-year-old in the role. Or you would have to completely rewrite her dialogue to sound more adult, and it might not sound as convincing because the entire story was written to be intended for a child.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough to get around, I feel. I think you just got to sort of accept that Daenerys is a bit of a childish person, despite being older.
Yeah.
Yeah,
also, I noticed during the dialogue what she was saying about when our dragons grow up, they will burn cities to the ground.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. In the novels, Zaro does not have to make a blood oath. She is immediately invited in.
Right.
She's fetched by Zaro, interestingly. So again, like going back to the whole thing of her being a child in the books, they have to sort of change some things. And it's interesting because it's like I understand why they have to change it, but at the same time it's like, does the story work in the same way if you do change it? So again, talking about, obviously we were talking about the themes of brutality and all that, but another big discussion point of Garden of Bones, I feel, is talking about, can you change an adaptation to fit a TV show? Because there was a lot of things in here that they had to take into consideration of, does it work in a TV show? And they had to take a lot of risks. And whilst I have a lot of respect for that, I think it definitely shows signs of the flaws, if that makes sense. Not that I'm saying that this episode is flawed, because I don't think it is. I think it's actually pretty well written. But I think it does show some cracks in the process, if that makes sense. And I think in this episode, they just about get away with it. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the books, Catelyn does not meet Littlefinger or any other envoy of the Lannisters at Renly's camp. Likewise, she does not receive Ned's bones there. They're brought to Riverrun by Cleos Frey. Interesting.
I'm glad they changed it, to be honest.
Yeah, it makes sense. It gives them a scene with Littlefinger. So that's an example of changing from the books where it's actually good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, again, like I said, I respect the fact that they're trying to change things to fit a show and doing it to the best of their ability. It's just unfortunately, when we get later on and they run out of source material, they run out of those small scenes that they only have to do, and they end up having to write entire episodes based off nothing. And I think that's the downfall of this show. But we've still got a long way till we get to that. But I think this is the first episode that really hints at what is to come, if that makes sense.
Yeah, most probably, I would say.
Did you expect it to come this early?
No, it kind of hit me by surprise how heavy this episode was in terms of getting a lot of plot elements in.
3.7 overnight, so it was 0.1 below the last episode.
That's still good.
Still very good, yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, give your conclusion and a rating out of 10 for Garden of Bones.
I thought it was really good. I thought it was very good. I thought there was a lot of really good individual scenes, and I think the highlights were Tyrion and the scene between Cat and Littlefinger. I thought was brilliant and really well acted. I think this episode handled a lot of plot really well, and the dialogue, bar from the opening sort of 5 minutes, was stellar throughout. Yeah, this is probably my favourite episode of the season so far, so I'm probably going to give it a 9 out of 10, because I thought this was really, really good, and how it managed to, in a very well paced way, handle all these different plots from different locations, but do it in a very natural way. I thought it was really good at how I handled all that. So yeah, say 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. Like I said in the review, I feel very similarly about this episode to the pointy end, where 90% of it is absolutely brilliant, and then there's about 10% of it that's a bit weird, unfortunately, and that comes at the consequence of taking risks, which I can respect. And I think they just about get away with it. I think the flawed moments in this episode do work, but they do stick out a little bit, and a bit like they feel a bit separated from the rest. But where this episode shines, it absolutely shines. Some of the character work with Stannis Baratheon and Renly, Littlefinger, Catelyn, Robb, even, and especially Tyrion. And also the introduction of Karth, which is just something completely different that we've never seen before, that we get another introduction of culture. And, oh my god, the scenes at Harrenhal were stunning, absolutely brilliant. I think honestly, I think the Harrenhal, like, if it wasn't for how brilliant Tyrion was and how just on point that scene with Stannis and Renly was, I reckon the Harrenhal scenes would be the highlight, because fucking hell, the Harrenhal stuff was brilliant. It was so good. So well executed, you know? And just such a pleasant thing to have Tywin Lannister back in the story again. It's going to be interesting going forward to see him and Arya Stark having scenes together and asking yourself the question of, does Tywin Lannister realise who she is? So yeah, overall I thought this was a stellar episode that would have been very highly rated for me if it wasn't for a few minor flaws. So like the pointy end, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Very, 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 very strong.
Agreed.
And quite possibly the best of the season so far. I think it's either this or The North Remembers. I think probably this, just for the Tyrion scenes.
Yeah, and I really, really liked the scene between Littlefinger and Cat. I thought that was one of the best acted scenes of the show so far.
Yeah, and just seeing the madness of Stannis' storyline taking into place. Like, what the hell is going on? What has he sold himself into? Like, with the Lord of Light. Like, this guy's a madman. And now that you've seen that, you can understand why Davos is so like apprehensive about her. You can understand why he's like, I don't understand why Stannis is following this woman when he could be following my logic.
Yeah.
And it makes Davos a sympathetic character, the fact that he has to obey his king's orders, but he has to obey his orders to do this very weird shit. But yeah, you're going to have to wait and see what happens with that storyline, because that was the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Yes. So, next time, we're going to be watching The Ghost of Harrenhal.
Ooh.
What do you anticipate for The Ghost of Harrenhal?
I'm expecting a ghost.
A literal ghost or a metaphorical ghost?
Maybe that's what that thing is it's a baby ghost that's turning into a man. I don't know.
It's gonna come to Harrenhal, and what's it gonna do?
It's gonna make what's his face pee his pants again.
Hot pie.
Yeah.
Is it gonna make Tywin Lannister believe in magic?
Maybe.
Is it gonna go up to Tywin and be like, Stannis says you better give him your fucking money because he's the rightful king? And then Tywin's gonna be like, any true king does not need to send some fucking ghost. And then the mountain's gonna slice it with a sword and it'll disappear into ash. I don't know. That's how Game of Thrones fan fiction. Do you reckon we might see any of the ones that we hadn't seen, like with Beyond the Wall and Bran and Iron Islands?
Possibly. Possibly.
It's kind of unpredictable at this point because there's so many storylines.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think this season is very different from the first because I don't think you can really tell how often plots are going to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot more storylines going on.
Oh yeah, it's very much more.
And this is more packed in than the book is because they've added a storyline with Robb Stark.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so filled to the brim.
Yeah, it's very story studded.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens now that Daenerys has made it into Karth now as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think her story can probably start to get moving now.
Yes. But yeah, I am looking forward to when you end up watching The Ghost of Harrenhal. So, we will see you all then.